It's happened before.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I just hear the fans. Anyway, welcome to Experimental Aircraft Association Chapter 1475, our presentation meeting. For this morning, we have the pleasure of having a couple of professional Zenith builders, pilots, do a presentation this morning. Skip Rhudy and Kevin Purdy. Kevin has a Zenith 601, which is parked out here in front, the little white one, 1313. And Skip is building a 750 stove.
Yeah.
He's in the process of building a 750 stove. We were going to have a couple of others fly in, but they weren't sure because of the heat, and I don't blame them. Anyway, y'all have any questions or anything? We're going to do door prizes after we finish. And if y'all want some water, cold water, it's in the refrigerator. Help yourself to it. The restrooms are located in the back of the building next door, so y'all need to go. Okay, turn it over to y'all. Thank you for coming.
Good morning, everyone. Appreciate you guys being here, even with the misery of the heat. The whole "it's too hot" thing doesn't fly with Skip and I because we're tough. Lupita asked me a couple of months ago, she said, hey, you want to talk about Zenith? So I said, sure. Problem is, I don't know very much about Zenith. What? There we go. Problem is, I don't know very much about Zenith. So I know about that one. However, I've got a good friend, Skip Rhudy, who's had the whole full meal deal experience in terms of buying and building. And he's, how far out are you, Skip? A year.
That's, yeah.
Well, so he's a year out from flying his 750, and he's way smarter than I am. Hey, Skip.
Yes.
What's your graduate degree in?
German.
Oh, German literature. Okay. And he works for Dell as a tech
You can earn
doc.
tons of money with
Okay. My graduate degree is in basket weaving. So anyway, I will say I got involved in Zeniths because my business is supposed to be giving transition training in low-wing Zeniths. That has not gone worth a crap. Okay, I'm going to go to the Zenith Homecoming next month, and we're going to see if we can gin that up. If not, I got a strong, wonderful flying 601 that's going to be for sale. All right. Thanks, folks. If you have any questions for me about the transition stuff or whatever, you can get with me afterwards. The meat and potatoes, Skip Rhudy.
Okay. Thanks, Kevin. So I'm happy to be down here. Before I came down here, I talked briefly with Sebastian Heinz, who owns the Zenith company that builds these kits. And he sent me a little bit of stuff. We were watching videos that he'd sent, and I'm going to do a little bit of a slideshow here from things that he sent me. So let's see what I can do here. So this kind of shows the different models of aircraft that Zenith has right now. This is not a sales pitch. I'm just going through this real quick. They have the low wing version now, which is the 650. Kevin has the older version, which is the 601. There's numerous improvements on the 650. When I first got interested in building a plane, I was very, very interested in the CH701. That was the one, and that was probably about 2004, 2005. I was really interested in it. I saw videos of this thing taking off in a good headwind of probably it took off in 10 or 15 feet. And I thought, wow, okay, that's cool. So I was really impressed by that. Around 2005 or so, they came out with this model, which is the big brother of the 701. And they've kind of come down to these planes in the last few years. They're all designed, I believe, by Chris Heinz. This is kind of crazy. It shows the development of the Zenith airplanes from Chris Heinz. Way back, he started out in the late 70s. He was an aeronautical engineer, worked on the Concorde aircraft, so the guy knew what he was doing. And but he was really interested in small planes, and particularly interested in helping amateur builders get into the air with the plane that they built themselves. He also wrote a little book that if you're interested, you can find it. It's Flying on Your Own Wings. There's a fair bit of math in there, and a fair bit of Chris's philosophy, which is kind of quirky and fun to read about. Let me go on here. That is Chris taking off in the very first 701. That's the prototype. So he He passed away in 2021. I never had a chance to meet him, but the guy who I'm building I built a Corvair engine to put in my plane, and the guy who has developed that engine over the last 30 years did know Chris Hines and had met him several times. Anyway, let's see what else I got here. Yeah, I'm gonna skip the rest of that. Just a second here. So I'm gonna just bring up some pictures, and all the pictures that you're gonna be seeing on a slideshow, they're just gonna kind of repeat while I'm talking, but they're showing the progression of my build from when I started, and it's more or less in order. It's gonna play a little faster than I want, but oh well. Let's see here. All right, yeah, I got really interested in the idea of doing an automotive conversion. It was just, I wanted to build the engine myself, and I was, my budget limitations weren't gonna let me do a certificated motor, which I couldn't do anyway, right? I couldn't build it. And anyways, I decided that I wanted to do a Corvair. In 2009, I think I went and bought 3 Corvair cores, and I used, Williams disassembly techniques and took it all apart and everything. But then I had a baby girl, so or my wife did, and that got put on hold. But in 2019, I decided, okay, I got to do this because I'm getting too old, and if I don't get it started, it's gonna never happen. So I went out and I found a Corvair core at a junkyard local to where I lived at the time, which was Seguin, Texas. And I had them pull it out. I identified it as a correct kind of core for an aircraft conversion. I didn't bring my manual down here, but William Wynn sells a manual about Corvair conversions. And if you're interested in doing that, that's the first step, because it'll teach you all about how to identify a proper core, what to look for when you're scrounging, or trying to find one. I found out that in Texas, after I bought my original 3 ones, it gets pretty tough to find these things. So I had to go to a junkyard. There was a couple pictures in there earlier on that already went past that showed how covered with grease, and it was completely black. And I took that thing apart. I kind of had to destroy it. Like the cylinders, I had to break those. I had to saw through the connecting rods. It was really tough disassembly. But when you're doing a Corvair, all the parts that you really need, are new parts. So you can get new cylinders and new pistons, new connecting rods, all that stuff, all that internal stuff that's critical is new. It's not from the 1960s. You keep the case, you keep the oil accessory case on the back, stuff like that. Anyway, I kind of, the next thing I did was I went ahead and ordered the rudder kit. I was originally thinking, well, maybe I'll build scratch, maybe I'll do a kit, but I thought it would be a good idea to start with at least the rudder. So I ordered that, and that came. And it was pretty easy to put together. The rudder kit, when you get it, it is pre-drilled, but the holes are smaller. They're smaller. They're not full size. You have to drill them out to their full size. And as I went through that, I called the factory once or twice with questions I had, but they were real good about answering that and getting me back on track. When I completed the rudder, which probably took three days of working on it or so, when I completed it, I was talking with Roger Dubert up there at Zenith, and he told me, the reason they get people to do the rudder first is because all the metalworking skills you're going to need to complete the aircraft, you're going to have to use on that rudder. So you're going to, in terms of the kit, all right, not in terms of scratch building, but you put it all together, you drill the holes out, you deburr them, you get everything lined up, you rivet it and all that kind of stuff. So that's sort of why you start. It's a good idea to start with the rudder. So I did, and I think a lot of people do. You don't have to, but it'll get you going in the right direction and let you know if you want to really do a build. I think the next thing after that was I went out to William Wynn. After I got the rudder done, in February of I guess 2020, I went out to Florida to William Wynn's hangar and I did the short block under his supervision. I've worked on engines before, motorcycle engines and that kind of thing, including drilling them out, you know, and doing a major overhaul on them, all those things. But I felt like I wanted this guy who's an expert to be looking over my shoulder. And sure enough, he was able to, you know, jump in there on multiple occasions and say, no, you got to do it this way, or so on. It was a very rewarding thing to do, because when I had that short block done, it's like, okay, I know it's been done correctly, because he's standing there making sure. When I came back to Texas from Florida, I thought, well, there's no way I'm going to finish this plane by scratch building it. So I went ahead and ordered some of the kits. And you can, with Zenith, you can order the kits separately. You don't have to order everything all at once. I think I ordered the slats, the flaperons, and the horizontal stabilizer and the elevator. I ordered all that kit together, and it came. There's been a couple pictures of a crate coming out of a facility. That was in San Antonio, where I went to pick that kit up. And they sent it to an Estes facility, and I just went and got it. That's my assistant. So this picture here is of the wing. That's the pilot side wing, looks like. But so I started building the stabilizer, and I thought that was pretty straightforward. That those things are partly drilled out all the way, and in some cases you have to Pleco stuff together and then finish drilling out to the final hole size. After that, what you do is you go and you have to deburr. I don't know, has anybody in here ever built a metal airplane before? So yeah, a couple guys. After you drill your holes and everything, you have to go through. You take the parts back, you know, take them apart again, and then you use a tool like this to get in there and deburr all the holes. Because if you don't, they're not gonna rivet together smoothly and correctly. Other thing I did was, when I first got started, I went ahead and ordered the tools from Zenith. They have a tool kit, you can order it. I thought, well, I could try to figure out what I need. They have, but this is one of the things that came in the tool kit. This is their riveter. It has some custom heads on it for the way they do their rivet. So their rivets, their pull rivets, when you pull them, they have a little dome on them. And so the rivet heads have been machined to have a little dome in them, so you can't, you know. So if you want to get this stuff separately, you should probably get the heads machined, or you could get them from Zenith. They actually will just sell you the head. This tool also came. It was a pneumatic drill. I never use this. Okay, I use my electric drill because I'm just better. I can control it better. This thing, it's either on or it's, you know, off. And it goes fast, so it's easy to kind of mess up the hole you're drilling. This thing has been invaluable, all right? This is a right angle pneumatic drill. Without this thing, there's no way I could have put parts of this plane together correctly. And they do not sell this at Zenith. I had to go onto Aircraft Spruce. I'm sure there's other places to buy it. Maybe eBay would be a good place too. Huh? Harbor Freight. So, Harbor Freight. You get what you pay for. Yeah, I'm not going to go down the path of use this tool, use that, but these are Cleco pliers, and these are Clecos. They send you most of the Clecos you need when you're when you buy a kit. Now these little guys, this is what holds the metal together while you're lining things up and making sure it's all correct before you drill out the final size and everything. What else? I have a bunch of other things I'll get to in a little bit here. But I bought the toolkit and I was not disappointed in it, except for I think they actually let you decide whether you want to have this or not. Like I said, I don't use it. I just use my electric drill, you know, from Harbor Freight. So, but let's see. So after I got when I was building the slats, one of the things I noticed about the slat was it's all pre-drilled. So when it comes to you don't get a chance you can't, like it goes together the way it goes together because the holes are already there. And what I was seeing was a little bit of a twist in this slat, okay? It wasn't completely flat. So if I laid it down on a table, it wasn't absolutely flat like you'd want it to be. And I was like, what's going on here, you know? So I thought about it, and I couldn't make it. I just couldn't get it to lay perfectly flat. So I called the factory, and when I was talking with Roger, he said, yeah, when we build these things from the kits that we, you know, produce on our CNC machine, there's a little bit of twist in these. And he said, as long as it's less than some number, 14 millimeters, you know, twist, you're good. And mine was less than that. And that twist actually on those slats, there's a plane out there, that 750 out there has the slats on front. That twist gets taken out anyway because you know, it gets bolted onto the wing, and those brackets kind of take that out. So there's going to be, when you get a kit, there's going to be a certain amount of twist, but the thing to do is to measure it, make sure it's within the building standards, and if there's any doubt, every time I've called that Zenith factory, I've had really great results. Those guys, I've seen people complain on Facebook sometimes, oh, they're not responsive, but that's not been the case. That's not been my case. Every time they've completely answered my question, and they're very good about it. Okay, so I decided after building these parts to finish up part of my engine. I put the cylinders on. That was the next thing that happened after the slats and the elevator and the horizontal stabilizer were done. And so I wanted to get a little further with my engine, but after I was done with that, I went up to, I bought the rest of the kit. I decided, okay, just forget it, I'm just gonna buy the whole thing. When I did, and then of course their policy may have changed, but when I called up, they actually discounted what I'd previously bought. So then they took it down to, so they have a pricing scheme where if you buy the whole kit at once, it's a little cheaper than if you buy each little bit. But they went and actually took that out and made it the regular price as if I bought everything all at once, because it was only like 2 or 3 months, right? If you're interested in these right now, I think they have a backlog, so that's something to consider when you're, thinking about a kit plane from them. So I went up there, went up to Mexico, met Sebastian, Roger, and that whole crew up there. Took a tour of the factory and took a demo flight. I had Roger took me up, and I asked him to do a simulated engine off, do a regular landing, do a short field landing, all those kinds of things, and he was really amenable. And we flew for probably 30 minutes, maybe a little longer. It was great, and that aircraft flies like it's lovely. It's a lovely plane to fly, and the visibility out of it is unbelievable. So it's almost like being in a helicopter, sort of. You're just surrounded by windows. I came back home and I started work on the wings, and then I got into the part of a kit from Zenith where it's not, so the electrical part is something that every builder is going to have to kind of approach and solve for Zenith. I mean, I got the wing light kit, and I got a few other things from them, but when it came to the electrical, there's no plan. Like here's my plans. I brought them all. If you guys want to look at them, I can pass them around or something. But all that electrical stuff is not, it's not in the plan. You have to understand how you're going to make your panel, and you have to start figuring out all that stuff on your own. I mean, they have panels. You can buy a full panel from them, but you're still going to have to run all the electric. You're going to have to do all that kind of stuff. Luckily for me, a lot of the stuff I had to do is already kind of there for me in a schematic diagram from William Wynn's Fly Corvair site. So all the critical and non-critical electric, I had something to go by, which helped a lot. But as I was working on all this stuff, we decided to move from Seguin, Texas to Tulsa, Oklahoma. So then I got interrupted, but I basically got the plane to the point where I had the fuselage built, The wings were all done, the empennage was finished, all the parts were finished except for the fuselage, and I moved all that stuff up to Tulsa. I went from a big, giant shop to something about the size of the back of a school bus, which is some of these pictures in here with the fuselage. You see it's a really tiny room, but it's working. In fact, some guy actually did build a 750, or I think it was a 701, inside of a school bus. I don't know if you've ever seen that, but you can go look it up, 701 in a school bus or something, and you'll see this guy's actually built his plane in there. That's the toolkit that they send you. That's the rudder, which I started off with. Basically, I'm at the point now where my fuselage is pretty much complete. I have wired up all of the wiring for my control panel, which I brought. This was a lot of effort. So when I got the fuselage almost complete, and I got to this point, you know, I was thinking, well, I'm really close to being done. All right. So this was probably last March when I started really working on the control panel and all that cockpit, all the wiring and all that stuff. And that's when I realized that this saying, okay, you're 90% done, but you've got 90% more to go. That really is true in terms of time, because you have to sit down and, I mean, if I'd done a plane before, probably all this stuff would have just gone a lot faster. But I had to learn about, okay, what kind of crimper do I need? All right, this is a FAA recommended crimper for, you know, terminals like a spade terminal or a ring terminal or butt splices. And but I got it from eBay. So if you're interested in getting the recommended tools, eBay is the place to go for stuff like this. I found a lot. I bet most of the tools I've gotten, which are the FAA recommended ones, I mean, I got all these tools here for less than the price of this thing new. This is a swager. This is what you swage your control cables together with. This thing is like 400 bucks new, or, you know, 450 or something like that on Aircraft Spruce. This is like $75 or $80 off eBay. So, and it's perfectly fine, it works. Same thing with, here's another really nice tool. It's for crimping very small connections. And you know, it's also a ratchet type, so you know exactly you've got enough pressure on your crimp. Okay. Anyways, so the electrical stuff took quite a bit of time because I also had to read about it. So I brought us some books and stuff. If you're ever, you know, if you're interested, all these books up here have been helpful to me and probably would help anybody else who's not familiar with the electrical stuff. But let's see here. The other thing that I've done is I found the Home Built Help series really useful. If I just had to build this plane from the instructions that Zenith provides and the plans, there would have been a lot more mistakes, a lot more unbuttoning from things that had already been buttoned up. I have become really good at removing rivets. It's not fun, but you know, you start learning how to do it. I think I got my plane up on its wheels last October. That was when I got that, and ever since then it's all been wiring the cockpit and the control panel. I figure if I really sat down and worked on it, I'd be probably a month out from taking it out to the hangar and hanging the motor on it, and from there it's just assembling all the parts because everything else is already built. So Kevin said, how long have I got to go? I said a year. I'd like to say he's wrong, or, you know, or that that's wrong, but it probably is. By the time I really get to flying it, it's going to be January or February at the earliest. And so I've learned a thing or two about estimating how long it takes to do something. I was out here way longer. It's always so I put this together. This is going to be my center console, and after I put it together first, I realized that there was no way that I was going to be able to get back here and service this thing or unplug the you know, power wires or all the different places these little wires go to. So I thought, oh, I need to have a little panel here that I can unscrew and pull it out and all that. I thought that'll take, what, a few hours, 2 or 3 hours, right? So I've done it 3 or 4 times. You know, every time I put it back in, it wouldn't fit. Something, you know, one of the controls on the back here wouldn't quite fit in the hole. And it's just, so that's the kind of stuff, you know, that winds up really extending the build out. If somebody were going to ask me, you know, how you know, 2 years ago or 3 years ago when I started this project, I thought I would be done in 2 years. Now, granted, we moved, so I lost 6 months, but I've been doing this for 4 calendar years. There are guys who started their plane after me, 750 STOL, and they're flying. So it's possible to do in like 2 years or less, really. It just depends on going out there. You got to work on it every day. I can go back in my logs and I see that I have not worked on it every day, which is okay because I'm busy with life. I think my friend William likes to say, you know, this is not a race. It's a challenge for yourself, right? You're not trying to necessarily cut corners. It's, you know, you're building a plane that you're going to be sitting in. It's your life, maybe the life of some passenger you take up. So, you know, you take your time, and I've found it really enjoyable. I've gone from being somebody who just sort of theorized about how cool it would be to build a plane to liking it so much that I'm considering doing an A&P after I'm done because I enjoy this so much. I can't do IT for the rest of my life, that's for sure. But that, I think, would be, then there's, you know, all kinds of issues associated with doing that, but that's in a nutshell what's happened here for me, and I'm hoping to be finished here pretty soon and get to testing it. So we'll see. Now, questions? Anybody have any questions? Does anybody want to look over the plans? You can come up here and check it all out, whatever you want. Are you asking me if you can make changes to it? Oh, yeah. There's a huge difference. Yeah.
But if you just get like the wings and the tool system, which is the tanks you need that.
Yeah.
In the ethanol, you're looking at $18,000.
Yeah.
So if you do the cost on it a little at a time, you're going to spend an extra 10 grand about that pricing model.
Yeah.
But you're saying he was open to bringing it back.
Well, you know, like I said, they did that for me. Again, I had bought that kit, and then I called them up probably a month later and told them, well, I'm going to just do the whole thing. And that they were like, you know, I don't know that they would go, you know, if you did it that way. They basically say you can do it, you know, in components, but if you do that, it's going to cost more. And I think they did that because I did mine so I bought the whole kit so close to having bought the other one that they were like, whatever. I know a guy who is building one of these planes scratch, and he's about the same place I am, but he started 10 years ago. So I did consider actually, you know, what you're talking about. Well, maybe I'll get the parts that I think I'll have a hard time building. I'll buy that kit, like the wings. I don't want to do the wing spar with all the regular rivets, you know, solid rivets and all that kind of stuff. You know, as a beginner, I don't want to put my life on the line that I did it correctly. But the more I thought about it, it was like, well, for me, it came down to time. If I were 40 years old, I might have considered. But when I look at this buddy of mine who's been working on his plane for 10 years, I'm like, yeah. But it's totally an option to do that, right? And they will work with you for sure. And the other thing is, you know, if you start and you're building scratch, you could easily start on a plane that becomes sort of outdated or no longer, you know, one of the planes that they directly support. I think they support pretty much everything, but they don't build 601 parts anymore. So they'll support it if you call them and say, how do I do this? And they'll tell you, or they'll help you with that, but they don't produce kits for 601s. So you run into that kind of issue with that.
If I may ask something so basic, just for a rookie, how much does it cost to buy a new kit, and about how much extra would you put in it? And I guess the final question is, okay, by the time you're done, you're painted, you're certified, or whatever, and you're ready to fly, how much are you going to have out of the aircraft?
A number I hear batted around is about $75,000 or so, and that probably is pretty close. But here's something else to consider that was something of a surprise to me, because I had no idea what I was, getting into. But you have to buy other parts. You wind up having to buy, like all the avionics and stuff like that. That's a given. But there's parts that I've had to buy, or tools, and that can add up. And I was joking around with Kevin that I've probably spent. This is a joke, but I mean, you feel like you're spending half again what the parts cost in postage and handling from Aircraft Spruce or whatever place is. But that's a fair number. If the 701 is still pretty cheap. I think the 701 kit is under $15,000 for the whole thing. The 701, not the 750. 750s. I went with steam gauges, yeah. Oh, it'll be more. Yeah, a little more. Yeah. I mean, you could definitely build one of these things, especially if you scratch build, for less. Although, aluminum is not dirt cheap either, so you're gonna be spending. Gosh, I don't know what a scratch build would cost. I'll ask my, I would imagine a minimum of 40 to 45, and then you have to ask how much is your engine going to cost. That's the big part of it, and that's part of why I went for a Corvair. But I wanted to build the engine, Yeah, that's actually, I believe that. From what, when you have to go out there and you have to source all your parts. Zenith, they buy rivets in bulk. They buy sheet aluminum in bulk. They'll even sell sheet aluminum to you, and they get it at a much better price than I did, and it's all, anyway. What was I going to say about that? Yeah, I guess the engine choice is going to be a major consideration. When I came to the decision in 2019 to build a plane, I still wanted to build a 701. I really like that plane. I mean, the 750 is great, but that 701 just for some reason really appeals to me. It's smaller, but I couldn't get a Corvair on it and fly with two people. So I said, okay, 750. And the 701 is a little harder to build. Mine has 110. Some of them have, there's 100, 110. I think there's a 3.3 liter that can do 120, yeah. But that engine is not really in production, so to speak, anymore. So William Wynn puts a number out there of 1,500 hours, but what he really talks about is more that sort of Mike Bush approach to maintenance, where you're trying to fix things when they start to go bad, when you start to get an indication that there's a problem. That's when you look at it. I don't think of the people in the last 15 years or so that have completed Corvair projects that are flying planes. How many hours does Ken Pavlou have? Like 600 or something? Or
yeah.
Nobody's reached that 1,500. I mean, that's.
It's very rare for a home builder to make it to 1,500 hours in anything.
There's no real official TBO but to be on the cautious side, William throws the number out of 1,500 hours. Yeah. So. Now that right there is an interesting piece. So on the Corvair, a long time ago, William realized that they needed to have a 5th bearing on it. Corvair has 4 bearings in it in the car motor, and due to the stresses that are induced during flying, which the Corvair obviously wasn't designed for, but it is a horizontally opposed engine, very good for an air-cooled automotive conversion. He figured out it would be a good idea to have another bearing on there at the prop end. And so that piece that I was pointing at is that 5th bearing. And basically the crankshaft gets modified, it has a bearing put on it, and then it rides inside that.
Is that a seal bearing that goes back to the bearing?
So it winds up getting sealed by the way that you put seals in around it, but it rides in there just like it was just a regular bearing in the crank.
No, there's
Yeah,
an
it's
oil fitting.
oil gets squirted in there. So there's a
Oil under pressure right from the oil pump right onto the boat.
Yep, yeah. Basically, it comes straight from
the
there.
airplane across from yours. I can show you.
Yeah, he's got
I'm
one.
your hangar neighbor.
He's
so.
right there. You can go check out his Corvair. Yeah. So I bought a heavy-duty oil pump, for 750, and I was in Texas, and it's hot, and so he figured out a bigger oil cooler, not the standard Corvair cooler, right? But it's a new one. It's an aircraft oil cooler, and that goes on there. I'd say it's about the same size as that one you put on the Cessna yesterday.
Yeah.
So it's sizable. Yeah. I used braided fuel lines, so the ones that the kit, that's another cost. I decided I'm going to upgrade the fuel lines from the rubber hose, which have clamps and I forget what those are.
Barb fittings.
Barb fittings. William was involved in an accident in which the plane caught on fire, and he makes a really big deal out of you don't want rubber hoses, and he knows what he's talking about. He knows why. But it seemed like a good idea to me, and basically that's braided hose that you'd find in a racing car. I use Earl's fittings to AN fittings to hook them together. And that's, I'm doing that on William Wynn's recommendation. The what? Oh, that's pretty, well, you can go on to, so there's various like JEGS or Summit Racing or any of these places. No, I didn't get them from Aircraft Spruce. These are braided lines that are typically used in racing cars. Which, pretty tough. Yeah, you shouldn't order anything from Summit. They won't. Yeah, but basically those are suppliers that have braided line that's used. That's good.
AN Plumbing, or were you the one that asked the question? Who asked the question about the braided line? You? Did you? Okay. So anplumbing.com has all that stuff. Yeah. So you can just get on there. If you do a little research on what. Oh no. But they don't ask you if you're buying it for an aircraft. You give them their credit card and they send you the stuff. It's like $9 a foot. Yeah. No, it's not horrible. And for the peace of mind of not having rubber, I wouldn't worry about the brake lines.
Yeah, the brake lines I haven't.
Yeah.
The plastic ones are.
Yeah.
I think
People obsess about the brake lines. It's like those brake lines out there are 20 years old, and I fly students, man. I'm on the brakes all the gosh darn time. Okay, dramatically, and those brake lines are still holding up. That's not going to kill. Well, it may run you off a runway, but that's not going to hurt you like the fuel could in a crash sequence. So that's William's thinking.
I think that
do a little
full
research
weight
on
with
that.
all the accessories.
You figure out what he
that Corvair
recommends.
Is about 220 pounds. Is that about right? 220.
Yeah.
220-ish. Yes, it's an alternator. Right. It is the same well, it puts out what,
It's a 30
60 amps?
No, I think it's
No,
30.
30 amps. It's a
Yeah, I think
30
it's
amp
30.
alternator. It's a big,
So
big.
my hanger's open and the cowling's off. You just walk right over there, man.
Yeah, it's it used to be a John Deere alternator, but it's
No, my airplane with a Corvair on it.
My airplane and his airplane share.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we share the Zenith and the Mooney, and then he knows where I am across the 15 feet away with the Peyton calling with the cowling off with the Corvair. Yeah.
Any more questions, you guys? Anything at all? I put, so yeah, and you know what? After I did that, I'm looking through the plans. I got their extra set of plans, you know, for all the extras they send you. Like I bought the dual stick, and I was thinking about having the foldable wings, and so I got all that stuff, and they sent me all these plans. Actually, in the original set, at the back 2 or 3 pages of plans, there's an option to put the fuel sender, the VW fuel sender, in from the top. And I would have done that actually, because I've heard people complain that it starts leaking, you know. So, but you know, most production planes have those in the side too. So it's not most, but some of them. Yeah, they'll leak out of the middle, right? Right. Yeah. Yeah.
That's not fun.
No, man. If honestly, I don't know that I would try to do it through there. I would just like, oh God, okay. I admire that. That's awesome. No, that would not be fun. Yeah, that's tough. That's a tough fit. Yeah, I bet. Yeah. Got a few cuts. Yeah, it does happen. Yes, sir. Yeah. I couldn't answer that question specifically, but it seems to me, out of all the motorcycle engines, that a BMW, it runs so smooth. You know, they don't vibrate a lot. Like people put Harley Davidson engines on airplanes. You know, you'd think it would shake the whole plane apart. You know, just taxiing it. But I don't know if that would work or not, and I don't know of anybody flying those. So that's that's the big challenge. If you do something like that, if you're on your own, you got to come up with all that stuff yourself, and it but it might work. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if it's in the right weight range, or and then you have to deal with things like a propeller reduction, speed reduction unit, and that kind of stuff. But yeah. I mean, yeah. I mean, what's great about Zenith also is that they're really open, not only to different engines, but I mean they're open to they feel like, okay, this is home building, it's experimental aircraft, and they're very open to different engine installations and so on. They may not be able to help you do it, but they cover a lot of different ones. But they're also, when I talked with Sebastian, I asked him specifically about, well, what do you think about people who are making all these airframe modifications and so on? And he's like, it's experimental building, and I think that's just their approach. Is we don't tell people, it's the kit. It's been designed by Chris Hines, and if you change it, it's on you. But it's experimental aviation, right? So, but I don't know about the other kit manufacturers. I've heard things about the Vans guys, or you don't change what everybody is doing. You don't you do it the way Vans says, and that's how you do it. And they don't really support automotive conversions and things like that. So Zenith is really great about that. there's a lot of flexibility in what you can do and what you can get support from the factory for, you know. So even when I was up there, do you want to talk about transition training? I think you kind of do, don't you? No? Okay, you don't. You already talked about it. Okay, all right. When I was up there, that was on my mind, though. You know, I'm not going to build this plane for 4 or 5 years and jump in it and take off without going and flying in one first. They do behave differently than the Cessna 150, which is where, or 152, where almost all my hours are. They, you know, on the flare and all that, they behave differently. There's a couple people out there who offer, you know, transition training. And when I was flying with Roger, I said, you know, transition, at that time, nobody was offering it. And I was like, how do I not crash my plane when I first time I fly it? And he said, look, if all else fails, come up here and you can, and they'd let me presumably fly with Roger and maybe, you know. But now there's options for that, so I don't think, you know. So that's kind of the upcoming thing. That's my motor mount. That motor mount there was put together by William Wynn. He has support for various airframes, and he just builds that stuff. So.
Can I ask, how much cheaper was the Corvair
Compared to a what? A Rotax? Well, I think Rotax are what, $24,000, something like that. So you can get William Wynn to build you a Corvair for something like 13 or 14. You can build it yourself, and depending on how you do it and how good a shape your core is in, maybe you could get it down to 7,000 or 8,000 with the new stuff, you know, that William offers. That's the critical parts. But I think most people are spending around 10,000 to 12,000 on their motor, which is, you know, and then if, you know, I mean, the cylinders are $100. How much is a cylinder for a Lycoming or a Continental, you know? Or if you have, you know, right? Or if you have to do something like a more, like what if the cam is messed up on your Lycoming or Continental? That's going to cost a lot to fix. You know, I mean, that's part of it for me was.
Those new cams on the Corvair, this company runs so they have good spark plug.
It's one plug. It's a single plug. Yeah, re-engineering of the engine at that level would probably be, you know, I mean, you might introduce.
Tried it.
Yeah, Williams tried it.
You know,
William tried it.
Spark plugs don't fail. The wires don't fail. He has a dual system up to the distributor.
Right, there's a dual ignition and that's set up for it. Yeah. It, you know, that has all burn front stuff and all kinds of stuff that's, and it like Kevin said, he tested it. And that's one of the great things about William too, is I will plug this, and I was really impressed by it. That guy does all this research and puts it out there for everybody to look at. He's the one who does these parts, he builds them, and then he goes and flies them. So it's not a part that, you know, he says, oh, you should use this, but he hasn't risked his own behind on, right? So he's really dedicated, I think, to quality, which is something that's important to me since I'm in quality assurance and software. So that's my thinking is kind of aligned, and I appreciated what he's doing. I couldn't see that going on with Volkswagen, or I didn't see that happening in other automotive conversion engines. So the Viking, you know, the Honda engine is out there, but they don't support builders building them. That you buy them, right? And I wanted to be able to take my engine apart and fix it and put it back together. How much? 48 grand. Well, there you go. Yeah. Yeah. My motivation. You know, there's a lot of Zeniths flying with Corvairs in them successfully, and I'm going to copy exactly what those guys have done. I'm not going to do anything different. I'm not going to try to, oh, I'll try the alternator on the back, or I'll, you know, I'm just going to do what the other guys have done that are flying, and that's it. Mine is it's a 3 liter, it's supposed to put out 110. Of course, I don't have a dyno. I'm not probably going to run it there, but that's about what they put out. So by testing, they were dynoed, those engines. So right now I'm based at Riverside in Tulsa. So my hangar's right there. It's a Class D airspace, and it's busy. I'll probably wind up doing my first flight out of there, but it's going to be at a non-busy time. I'll let the tower know in advance, you know, that I'm doing this test. Huh?
What's your first flight?
Yeah, I will. I've got a great set of videos of when I went and took my test, or my demo flight with Roger. I just haven't. I'm kind of lazy when it comes to video production. I've got all these great videos, I just haven't put them together. But I will, you know, when I get there. Kevin claims he's going to come up and help me do that test flight, so I'll have him on the ground and he can film it. Laughing, he'll be laughing. Oh, you know. Anyway, so that's
You're going to have transition training. You will have flown a 750.
That I know. It's not going to be an issue. Yeah. So it's been a lot of fun to do this. It's been very rewarding. When I go out into my little shop, which is now just my garage, it feels good to get out away from all that outside stuff in the world that's, you know, aggravating and you can't control. But I can control that airplane build, and it's like a Zen Hour or two. There's a guy who I'm going to go transition train with who got his 750 done 2 years ago or so maybe, and you know, he's always saying work on it every day a little bit, an hour, 2 hours. If you do that, maybe it doesn't take as quite as long as it's taken in calendar years for me. But I've only got about 700 or 800 hours in it, honestly, you know. So if I'd just done it all at once, you know, I'd probably be done in 2 years, 2.5 years. So definitely doable in that amount of time if you've got the, you know, time in your life to devote to it. So, and I've learned a tremendous amount. So it's been really good. All right.
600 hours total?
I think I'm estimating that right now about 700 to 800 is probably what I've got into it. But I think when they talk, here's one other thing I would say. So when you go on to these kit sites, Zenith or whoever, they'll say, it takes 700 hours or 500 hours to build. They're talking about the airframe. They're not talking about completing the aircraft. They're not talking necessarily about putting the firewall forward on it. You know, they're talking about how long it takes to build the airframe. And the other stuff that you have to do to the plane to make it airworthy, that's not in the number usually. And there's, I can't tell you how many times where I've been, I'll be working on something like this and I'll be like, it'll only take a couple hours, and then I find out I don't have the right part. And then I have to order that part, and then I order it, and then it's the wrong part because I'm inexperienced, so then I have to go get, you know, it's amazing how much time you can spend just on logistical stuff like that. So the end, for me, the one thing you got to have to build a plane is not necessarily a whole bunch of experience, because you know, the P-39, which was used extensively in World War II, that was built by people who worked in bakeries and women who came in who were housewives. They just set it up just like the Zenith, to where everything was stamped out, and all they did was they took it to their station and they assembled it, just like the Zenith is today. It was done without CNC computers, but they stamped everything out, took it in. It was all done like that. What you have to have is just perseverance. That is the thing that will get you through the build, because it's just, there's going to be times where you go like, wow, this may take a long time. I enjoy it, but that's what you got to have. Yeah, you just have to expect it's going to take a while, you know. And if you enjoy it, you'll be successful and finish it, you know, I think.
What's the biggest frustration?
Well, I thought my biggest frustration is when I realized I hadn't really followed the instructions correctly, and now I had to undo something. There were multiple times when I had to pull out, I had to buy extra rivets, A5 rivets, because I kept screwing up and putting things together, and then realized, oops, there's a part that's not in there. I have to knock all the rivets out, so that's a little frustrating. But it's also like, okay, and you always think, okay, I won't do that again. Probably will. But yeah, and but that's where these videos from Home Built Help really came in handy. Like I said, if I wouldn't be as far as I am if it weren't for these guys' videos. So. Huh? Yeah, that guy. Yeah. Oh, you did? Yeah. So definitely any kinds of things like that you can get to help you along is worth it. Compared to the price of the airplane, you know, but if it's $100 for that against 75,000. So anyway, any other questions? Otherwise, we'll end it. All right, thanks guys. I hope you got something out of it.